Well, good evening, commissioners and also members of the public. My name is Brian Mance from GovRates, and I'm here to present the results of the stormwater rate study. So it's important to recognize, what do the city's stormwater rates pay for? Well, the stormwater utility has several areas of responsibility: construction of new or replacement stormwater handling infrastructure, cleaning of the underground stormwater drainage system, maintenance of roadside surface, the roadside surface drainage network, the removal of obstructive vegetation from ditches or swales, mowing and litter control on Deltona's collector roads and 31 residential sectors, master planning to solve local flooding and water quality problems and to provide pollution prevention solutions, and emergency stormwater services before, during, and after major storm events. So the city's stormwater rates are annual charges per equivalent residential unit to fund stormwater operations. And the existing charge or assessment of $128 per year per equivalent residential unit has remained unchanged since fiscal year 2019, or 5 years ago. It's not been right-sized since various factors and market volatility have caused substantial inflation in stormwater utility costs. It's insufficient to keep the stormwater system operationally and financially sustainable. It's currently accounted for, the stormwater operations are accounted for in a special revenue fund, and the current funding levels require transfers from the general fund to pay for stormwater operating and capital needs. So with respect to making projections, we've made projections through fiscal year 2029, and we look at the operations and maintenance expenses, debt service, capital improvement program funding through rates, any kind of administrative transfers or reserve allowances. All of these components make up what we call revenue requirements that we need to fund through our stormwater rates. So let's talk about the issues. One is aging infrastructure. Stormwater infrastructure, just like a lot of utility infrastructure, is often out of sight, out of mind until there's an incident. Deltona is predominantly a swale or ditch form of stormwater conveyance, unlike new developments which provide curbing, catch basins, retention ponds, and other contemporary design standards. Hurricanes Ian and Nicole caused about 250 homes to be flooded, roadway closures, and an overwhelming, unprecedented impact on the stormwater infrastructure. Deltona has infrastructure that in some areas is over 50 years old. The assets have reached or exceeded useful service lives. And here we see some pictures of the flooding impacts of Hurricanes Ian and Nicole. And again, here's another picture which shows obviously a road underwater. These are pictures of what a lot of your stormwater infrastructure looks like. And a key takeaway from this picture is that the need to replace this infrastructure proactively is not going to go away, but it's just going to continue to be more expensive to address. The city has begun the Teresa Basin Study, which will enhance the stormwater master plan and identify priority areas for stormwater improvements. But of course, we need funding for these improvements, as well as for other projects identified in previous master plans. Obviously, with stormwater, the city has pursued and continues to pursue grants and other cost-free options to reduce amounts that must be funded through stormwater rates, including state appropriations, the FEMA mitigation program, the FDEP programs, the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, Community Development Block Grants, Transform 386, and to help expedite the grant validation and submittal process, the city has pre-qualified 2 firms with extensive expertise in grant procurement. So again, the city staff is always trying to secure stormwater grants, the availability of stormwater grants, obviously, it depends on priority and also how economically disadvantaged a community is. So here's the capital program. There's about $25.5 million of capital needs addressed here, primarily the Teresa Basin drainage improvements and pump station and a lot of vehicles and equipment that just need to be replaced. As far as the capital improvement program funding, about 76% of the funding is projected to come from bank loans and special assessment notes, with the remainder funded on pay-as-you-go basis from rate revenues and operating reserves. And we've assumed 3 bank loans based on recommendations from PFM, the city's financial advisor, one in 2025, one in 2027, and one in 2029. Another issue is substantial cost increases. Since 2019, when the stormwater rates were last adjusted, stormwater operating expenses have increased 70%, from $3 million to $5.1 million today. And operating expenses are projected to continue increasing. Florida inflation is now exceeding national trends. There have been substantial increases in the stormwater utility supply costs. There's been nationwide issues with filling positions and keeping employees, and there's a need, obviously, to perform more repairs and maintenance on the system. And it's important to recognize that these permanent increases in costs must ultimately be passed through to customers through rates. So some sample cost increases since the stormwater rates were last adjusted. One is here's the Northwest Drainage Improvements Project. The engineering estimated construction cost in 2019 was $775,000. The lowest bid for construction in 2022 was $1.8 million, 144% higher. Here we have and also another example, the Fort Smith pump station improvements. The engineering estimated construction cost in 2020 was $275,000. The lowest bid for construction in 2024 was $641,000, 133% higher. Now, these increases in costs are not unique to Deltona. This is just something that's being experienced nationwide. Another issue is impact to the general fund. So there was a $2.5 million transfer from the general fund to the stormwater fund in fiscal year 2024. The stormwater fund is basically depleted, deferred maintenance is growing, and stormwater cost increases are now paid from the general fund, which reduces the flexibility to the city to address other priorities. So revenues under existing rates are insufficient to address utility system needs. And we talked about what goes into the different the operating expenses, debt service, things that are paid through rates. And here you can see that this red line represents the revenues under existing rates. And the bars represent the things that we need to recover through our rates. And obviously, if the rates were sufficient to meet all of our costs, the bar would intersect at the top of the line would intersect at the top of the bars, but it's not. And so this is not a financially and operationally sustainable system. Financial risks of not adjusting stormwater rates. The stormwater system is basically unsustainable, and rates will be higher as capital needs are deferred. You saw the pictures of the sample renewal and replacement needs. Those things will not go away, but they're just going to be more expensive to address in the future. And you can see from this chart that if we just didn't do anything, if we just said, if we had this plan and didn't do any kind of rate adjustments, we would quickly run out of cash. So basically, we can't do anything. So what is the projected need for stormwater rate increases? Right now, we talked about the existing rate that's been effective since 2019 or for 5 years, $128, or an effective monthly rate of $10.67. For 2025, we're proposing paying $170, which is an effective monthly rate of $14.17, or an effective monthly increase of $3.50. Now, we don't, one thing we do when we proactively, check for affordability. And the less than 1% of median household income for stormwater systems is considered an affordability threshold by bond rating agencies. And you can see that for our entire plan, we're well below 1%. So by any utility industry standard, this would be considered an affordable plan. And assessments are adopted annually. Only the 2025 adjustment needs to be adopted at this time. So with the rate adjustments, you can see that we were kind of looking at the dotted red line before, but you can see with the adjustments, you can see that we are intersecting at the top of the bars and basically meeting our obligations and reducing the subsidization from the general fund. And there was some talk about cash reserves. We're not really where we want to be as far as cash reserves, but we're at least on a path to reestablish the depleted stormwater fund. And certainly with the kind of volatility and cost that the stormwater fund has been experiencing, it's important to have some cash reserves so that if you have an unforeseen operating or capital cost, you're able to adjust accordingly. So how does some utilities bill monthly while others have an annual assessment. So as I mentioned, a lot of the stormwater issues, a lot of the cost increase issues, they're being experienced by utilities nationwide. It's nothing unique to Deltona. You can see that you're under the proposed stormwater assessments, you're a little bit higher than the DeBerry.
Excuse me, sir, if you can just keep speaking to the microphone because some residents can hear.
Oh, okay, all right. So as you can see with the proposed rates, you'd be a little higher than DeBerry, but obviously there are other utilities, stormwater utilities that have a lot more challenges as higher rates. However, any kind of rate or bill comparison is not a report card on how well the utility is performing, because there are a lot of reasons why stormwater rates differ among utilities, such as the services provided through the stormwater fees. Not all stormwater utilities provide street sweeping, the amount of lake or canal area to be maintained, the level of capital improvements needed, the amount of renewals and replacements, how much grant funding you can get, or the time of the last rate review. Just a lot of different reasons why the stormwater rates differ among utilities. So our recommendation is to adopt the proposed 2025 annual charge of $170 per equivalent residential unit, which is an effective $14.17 per month, basically a effective $3.50 per month increase. By any utility standard, it's considered affordable, competitive. It's necessary to provide enough revenue to secure financing for a portion of the capital program and eliminate subsidization from the general fund. It doesn't exceed the stormwater utilities costs, and certainly the 4% early payment discount is applicable with this assessment. And again, this is the first stormwater proposed rate adjustment since 2019, or 5 years ago. And as I mentioned, only the 2025 adjustment would need to be adopted at this time, and certainly the city staff will has a program in place to try and get some grant funding, and to the extent that you can get some grant funding, maybe some of the future rate adjustments can be reduced, or the city can do even more to address your stormwater needs. And as I talked about, the recent basin study should be completed sometime, I guess it's maybe next year, and then you'll have a better, and then you'll be able to better address, the priority, figure out the highest priority stormwater needs. That's it.